Hello HEMA friends and welcome to this new video. So today I'm here with Clement and I'm going to shoot for you one private training session of ours. Clement is here for 5 days. This one is his last day here, and so we are going to train some complex actions, some sparring and also some solo forms. So let's check it out. After a fast warm-up, we went straight for a frontal lesson. During this kind of lesson, depending from the objective, I give various tasks to the trainee, which he has to accomplish. Some stimuli or situations may dictate which action he has to do, or how he has to change plan on the run. We started with achieving degrees, so getting strong against the opponent blade, and then thrusting. You may find this a simple action explained in my video dedicated to thrusting, which I made months ago. If you want to see it, check the link above. Anyway, the first objective was binding at a measure of control distance, namely at a measure at which reacting to the opponent's possible movements is still a realistic possibility. From there, the main objective of the lesson was landing a straight, direct thrust with proper arms extension and opposition. Once the goal had been achieved, I added the parry variable. During the extension of Clement's arms, and so before his step, I could or could not had parried the thrust. If I parried, then he would have landed another attack on the outside line, namely a reverso fendente, trying to keep the initiative for himself. Once the habit to deal with this new possible outcome ended up being established, I added a little step further. The reverso could or could not be parried. If yes, then a riposte needs to be expected. I gave Clement the task to deal with it with a sword grab after parrying inside by keeping the sword with the main hand only. After practicing this relatively complex technique in isolation for a few times to establish the overall form of the action, I added it as a variable of our frontal lesson. Once going through all these possibilities, changed at random from one repetition to the other, ended up being relatively easy for Clement, I added another variable. From now on, when Clement reached his binding position at his measure of control, he had to take in consideration the possibility that I could use the time offered by his binding to land a cavazione and thrust at him on the outside line. He had, in that case, to parry riposte on top of that thrust. Adding this last variable added a crucial point of choice during the execution of Clement's actions. Going for the thrust without caring would be faster, indeed, but learning to react to other possible outcomes during the preparation of our main plan is also extremely useful, if there is enough distance to react, of course. My main corrections during the lesson were mainly pointed toward 2 points. The first one being the starting position of Clement, where I asked him to keep the point lower, aiming at my face. This helped him executing the binding action properly by raising and slightly pulling the arms backward, other than threatening in a better way. The second was reaching the correct distance while binding, and not getting too close during that preparation action, which is as useful as it may be risky if executed by gaining too much distance in the process. Once reached a good degree of success during the execution of the lesson, we went for a sparring session. The goal of the sparring was, of course, the application of the knowledge gathered during the days of training, not necessarily of what Clement had just seen, anyway, as by being both the instructor and the opponent, I can't avoid being biased, in a way or the other, in relation to such actions. The other objective of the sparring at this stage of the lesson was to free a little bit the mind from what we had just done, challenging a little bit the memory and, even better, the ability to logically figure out the objectives and the needs, which makes an action possible and viable, and also logical. Because the next step was to go again on top of the same actions we had just done, but while doing them in solo. The ability of replicating an action in solo training with proper form after executing it in paired drills or during a frontal lesson is to me extremely useful. Nice. Looks cool. If a student is able to replicate properly the movement of a technique executed during a frontal lesson or a paired drill, he either has a very good memory, which may be good, but more commonly and far better at the same time, he had grasped the motivations behind each sword movement and each stepping motion. The execution of a proper solo form after learning a technique and with it a tactic with which it can be brought to the opponent shows a good understanding of the motivations behind the movement and helps remembering them and training them while training alone, when the possibility to train with a training partner is missing. After going through the various steps and the various outcomes of our frontal lessons, so the various variables added one by one, executed in solo, we closed our lesson, which went on for roughly 2 hours at this point. Okay, so we are at the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks to Clement for helping me shooting this video.
Welcome.
And thank you to you, of course, for watching it. And well, remember that if you want to support the channel, you can just check in the video description. You will find the link to my Patreon page where you can support me and receive in exchange some of my exclusive contents. That said, thanks for watching as always, and see you next time.